When I reached Chowpatty, it was 2:30 in the night. There was silence everywhere, and in this silence the sound of ocean waves and the sound of drinking wine was very pleasant. I took the car and went very close to the beach. Then I stopped the car by a beach. I did all this under his guidance. I stopped the car and asked Kamala to get down, so she stopped and said, "Man, why did you take me to Chowpatty?" Before I could answer anything, Kamala said, "Derika whispered in my ear, Jimmy, take Kamala along the shore and walk a little further." I could not ask Derika the reason and started walking on the beach with my hand on Kamala's waist. "Hey, where are you going?" I was busy walking around. "If you wanted to spend the rest of the night here, let me know in advance. All the fun will be gone." Kamala said, "Plainclothes police officers lurk here like hounds and catch strays when they get a chance." I replied to Kamala, "I know how to deal with the police, don't worry." Derika asked me to go further and I went ahead. Then when we were passing through a desolate and very dark area, Derika suddenly asked me to stop and said, "Jimmy, you know I need blood. Blood is my food and I am hungry. It seems you will cause trouble for me by killing Kamala." Hearing Derika's words, I jumped as if my foot had been touched by bare electric wires. Now I all understood why Derika was worried and why she was so stubborn about bringing Kamala to the Chowpatty. I didn't know what to do now. That scene came before my eyes when I killed Jamshid, the fiancé of Noreen, at Derika's instigation. Then the next day, reading the description in the newspaper, my body was shaking. Derika said, "Believe me, I will not disturb you for a whole month." I said to Derika, "Can you not give me a chance to think till tomorrow?" Derika replied, "Why do you need to think till tomorrow? Yes, nothing." "Jimmy, won't you obey my command?" At Derika's lips and tone this time I let out a terrible snort like a bloodthirsty cat forcing its weakness out of its throat, and at the same time I felt its thin claws digging into my head. As the days passed by, my condition was getting worse. Derika was repeating one sentence in my mind. The intensity was increasing. Then suddenly I grabbed Kamala's neck with all my strength and the grip of my fingers on Kamala's neck became tight. The sounds were coming out and she started swinging in my hands. "Listen, you hit her like this. I don't want to leave a mark." This time stumbled on the body in such a way that blood came out of Kamala's body. Derika was licking her lips. Kamala was making loud noises from her throat. Kamala's eyes were wide open with fear, terror, and pain. This time, a strong thump hit Kamala's body and blood flowed from Kamala's body. Kamala's soul had left her body. I let go of Kamala's lifeless body and I myself took several steps back in fear. I whispered to Derika, "For God's sake, leave me. I fold my hands in front of you," I said helplessly. "It's impossible, Jimmy. You've promised me friendship, and it's going to end when I want it, Jimmy." Derika answered quickly and then put her tongue to her lips and said, "Now run away from here, lest you be arrested for Kamala's murder." "My God, what shall I do?" I cried. I said. I looked at the lifeless Kamala on the sand, then quickly turned and started running towards my car, the dreamy atmosphere of the Chowpatty until a few moments ago and the pleasant breeze of the wind to me and my thirsty feelings. But now it all became so scary for me that I wanted to go far away from there as soon as possible. In return for Kamala's dead body, I would have shut the mouth of the police under the heap of wealth. But at that time I was a murderer and I was sure that I would be hanged in this place. At the encouragement of Derika I was running from where I had put Kamala. The distance of the car was not much, but a little fear and terror made even this short distance too long for me. Every moment I thought that countless law enforcers would suddenly appear from the darkness and take me in their grip, but it didn't happen. At that time my mind was suffering from conflicting situations. Sometimes I used to think about Kamala, who was completely innocent. Before she died, Kamala saw me for the last time in an anxious way. Even today that feeling dominates the mind. Once I remembered Kamala's beautiful smile in my bedroom and suddenly my mind was confused about her. Whose mysterious presence made Kamala die from me, and then when I thought that at that time Kamala's dead body was lying on the chowpatty. Derica must be sucking every drop of blood from Kamala's body to sustain her existence. When I entered the house my special servant was waiting for me. He got up hearing my footsteps but I paid no attention to him. I quickly went to the dressing room, changed my clothes and fell on the bed and started taking deep breaths. Although I survived the incident and reached my home and I was sure that no one suspected me, still my condition was deteriorating for several days. As long as I stayed in bed I controlled my breathing. Then after thinking about something, he got up and went out and asked the employee if anyone had come in my absence. The employee replied no. He judged the condition of my heart from my face and said, "Sir, you seem a bit worried." "No, there is nothing like that," I said. Then he stopped and said, "Listen to the woman who came here. Do you know her?" The servant did not understand the nature of my question, so he muttered, "I swear, sir, I have never been in these circles. If anyone asks you about the woman, say that you know her perfectly. Maybe if someone asks you about the presence of this woman here. Don't worry, sir, I have worked with many Seth people. I consider the master's secret to be my own secret." I was very angry with the way the employee spoke. If there was another chance I would have fired the employee right then and there. I just glared at him and went back to my bedroom and lay on the bed. The mysterious Derica was not on my mind at the time, but my mind was confused about it. I knew that Derica's mysterious power had made me a rich man, but at that moment I was thinking very carefully about how to get rid of Derica. Therefore, even if I had got rid of him, I could have lived in luxury. But I knew that it was not up to me to leave Derica's jurisdiction. I begged Derica to leave me and choose someone else for herself, but she replied that she had entered my head of her own free will, so she would maintain her dominance as long as she wanted. Not only this, but he also told me that if I ever break my promise to him, I will have to face severe punishment. I was tossing and turning on my bed all night and at some point sleep overtook me. I don't remember anything, but I do remember being woken up again by a knock on the door. I looked at the wall clock on the wall and it read 9 in the morning. All the events of the night were fresh in my mind, so when there was another knock on the door, I sat down nervously and started thinking that the policeman had not come to arrest me somewhere. What if it happened? Will I be accused of murdering Kamala? Will I be able to convince the law enforcers that I am not the killer of Kamala and Jamshed? Rather, it is the mysterious power of Derica which always dominates my head and kills me. Will law believe in Derica's mysterious existence? Will people believe in such a strange and incredible event in this scientific age? If not, what will happen? All these worries kept bothering my mind. When someone knocked on the door for the third time, I was no different than a rat trapped in a cage trying to hide in its existence. I woke up feeling the gravity of the coming moments, but I had nothing else to do but surrender myself to the situation. So I controlled my beating heart and walked towards the door with a trembling face. I had the same special servant at the door. I could feel a strange glint in his eyes, but I saw that his gaze changed a little. I looked away from his face and tied the belt of the dressing gown and asked what is the matter. The employee replied, "Sir, this newspaper has come." I said, "Don't you know, I needed tea more than newspapers during the province." The servant replied, "I know, sir, but I thought you would need a newspaper before tea today newspaper," but the next moment darkness started swimming under my eyes. My head spun and the newspaper fell from my hands to the floor. The first headline that came out was about Kamala's murder. Under the headline was a picture of Kamala's dead body, which blew my mind. I realized that before I could gather my senses, I said something to the employee. He spoke on his own. Then he said with his tongue, "I remember well what you said to me last night. Rest assured, if the policemen reach here, I will give a statement that Saib never had anything to do with Kamala," said the employee. I stood up and felt the delicacy of the occasion and then addressed the employee and said clearly that the conclusion drawn from the news is correct. I said to the employee, "But can you provide any proof of this?" The employee said, "How are you talking?" he said. "How can I produce evidence against you?" I explained to the employee. So he said seriously, "Don't worry, sir. First of all, the police are still in trouble. Nothing is known about Kamala's killer, and if God willing he does find out, you can silence him by putting a seal of wealth on his lips." I saw the greed in the employee's eyes and said, "If you show loyalty, I will make you happy." "I will always be loyal," replied the employee, but he couldn't do thousands of things. Employee, I believe. What were you trying to do? The employee wanted to make a deal with me, and my body became a flame. "I will not give you a single rupee, as you want," replied the employee with his eyes closed. It was an open challenge to me that if I did not pay the required amount, he would make a statement against me. 200,000 will be spent on the police and I will put you in jail. I was worried about the mysterious murder of Kamala because it happened at night. I was strolling in my bedroom in worry. I was worried, but then I felt Derika sleeping peacefully with her feet on my head. A smile was felt. She was a mysterious being. My mind had created a picture of it. Sometimes Derika seemed to me to be a scary character and sometimes a benevolent friend. His face had turned red, perhaps after drinking Kamala's blood his magnificent being had gained full strength. But it was Dika who brought me to the ranks of murderers. But under the current circumstances, I could only bear to remain silent. My collision with an unseen force was not the solution to the problem. Derika got up with an angry eye. She was smiling at my condition. His smile used to fuel the fire at that time. Derika smiled and said casually, "Jimmy sir, you look a bit worried." Derika said, "Sir, you look a bit worried." "No," I said sternly, "but I am in a very good mood at the moment." Derika said, "You are thinking about Kamala." She spoke with her usual frankness while running her tongue over her red lips. Then that naive Kamala was a girl with a really beautiful body. She had very good blood. "I don't know what your blood will be like," Derika said sarcastically. "Derika cat, I have heard that the blood of a stray man is very bitter and bad tasting." I used to say to Derika in helplessness, "For God's sake leave me now. I will never forget this kindness of yours." "A great kindness seems to be forgotten, Jimmy. Have you forgotten all these comforts of yours? Derika has given it to you." Jimmy said, "After all, Do you want me to keep shedding innocent blood for you? Listen, Jimmy, Derica suddenly spoke very seriously, it is certain that there will be some temporary problems, but you will not be harmed. I don't know what it was about Derica's tone that made my heart soar. I told Derica that my employee got angry with me. Derica said, for your information, he is currently writing his statement in the police station and the police will reach here soon. Yes, but you don't need to worry. You know how to use wealth to silence the police. Don't worry about what will happen to the employee. I will fix it, said Derica reassuringly. She said that as long as you keep your promise to me and don't try to get rid of me, I will protect you equally. But the day if you break the promise, I will make you suffer. I knew that she has the power to do what she is saying, so I did not answer and started thinking in my heart how long this disaster will last. Derica said, do you know that your Noreen is coming to meet you? I happily said, how did you know that she is coming? Why do you forget that I am a country of mysterious forces and everything is in my knowledge? Derica said, I also know that Noreen is coming to marry you and you will agree. Immediately I heard footsteps from outside. Then what I was thinking, a police inspector entered the room with 2 soldiers. Then I heard Derica's voice flatly deny that you know a girl named Kamala. Yes, when the police do more, you can warm the fist of the inspector to get rid of the temporary problem. Jimmy carefully controlled his heartbeat and looked at the inspector as if disgusted by the unauthorized entry into his house. He moved on to the real objective. He was anxious to get some information from me about Kamala. I gave my statement to the inspector that I am not familiar with any girl named Kamala and this is the first time I am hearing this girl's name. According to the statement given by the employee, he will harass me. He was staring at me as steadfast as a rock. I looked at my employee with great indifference and replied, he has been my employee as if you admit that Rahmat Ali was your employee till yesterday. You believe that Rahmat Ali was in your employ till dawn? Yes. May I ask why you fired him from your job? Said the inspector with some sarcasm. I was not used to this kind of behavior. No offense, Mr. Jimmy. Have you read the story of Kamala's murder? The employee's statement is that the deceased was with you in your bedroom that night. I flatly denied that Kamala was not with me. You have no right to accuse me of murder on the mere statement of an employee. After a pause, the inspector asked in a low voice, Mr. Jimmy, may I ask where your car is now? Look, I said without getting angry. Then I was about to go out with the inspector, when Derica, who was seriously assessing the situation, said to me, Jimmy, it's time to buy the inspector. Derica said that now it is necessary to buy the inspector because the wheels of the car are covered with sand, which can confuse you in the murder. Jimmy, why did you stop? Are you feeling confused while getting your vehicle inspected? No, I said quickly and controlled myself very gently. Inspector, I have something important to say to you. I told the inspector that my employee tried to trap me by taking advantage of the delicacy of the occasion. He has blackmailed me many times because of girls. The employee started making conspiracies in his mind, and in the morning when he demanded a huge amount from me, he threatened me when I refused. Seeing that he can implicate me in Kamala's case, he also showed me the morning papers. I didn't understand how he could implicate me in Kamala's murder, so I was confused for a moment. Then he quickly controlled his anger and said, the fact is that Inspector Kamala has come to my house a couple of times before. This greedy man said that if I refused to give him the money he demanded, he would trap me by taking a statement against me from Kamala's friend. Inspector, I shook hands and said, I assure you that I have nothing to do with Kamala's murder. Can you tell me how much money your employer asked you for this morning? The inspector uttered his last sentence in a slightly subdued and sarcastic tone. 25,000. This person has been grinding different times before me. The inspector smiled and said, Jimmy sir, act wisely on such an occasion. 1.2 lakhs is not more than your honor and life. The inspector said that to solve this problem according to the occasion, the deal will not be expensive. I realized that my victim had fallen into my trap, so after some hesitation I made an open bargain with the inspector and gave him the required amount when he left. When the conversation started, I said, Inspector, my employee will not try to disturb me by contacting other senior officers. What are you talking about, Jimmy? This time, the inspector replied with confidence. Dare to say a word? Then I took a long breath of satisfaction. Then the first thing I did was to take the car out of the garage and drive it to the servicing station that the inspector had given 1,500 rupees to the employee and had strictly instructed that if he spoke a word in this regard, it would not be nice to listen to him. Are you still in danger of anything? I replied. I wonder how long I will be safe from the gallows like this. Derika said, as long as you keep your promise. Can't you find any other means to sustain your existence than human blood? Said Jimmy. Perhaps Derika resented my question. I felt like I was looking at Derika in the mirror. She was biting her lower lip furiously and I was falling down the stairs. I quietly went to my room and lay down on the bed to relieve my tiredness. Jimmy, Derika addressed me sternly. My diet is mine. I don't need your advice. You don't even need to know why. After a few moments I closed my eyes and lost in my shock. When the shock wore off, I slowly got up and went to the bathroom to take a shower. That day I stayed at home all day. Those who came to meet me, according to my instructions, the watchman let them go saying that I am not at home. In the evening I changed my clothes and went out to the service station. I was angry that I was alone and Derika was angry with me instead of comforting me, probably because I tried to stop her from drinking human blood. Derika was sleeping on my head and resting her face on her elbow and was deep in thought. On his face, I had a very serious look. I gave up my will. When the night came, the feeling of loneliness started haunting me. I resorted to alcohol to cheer up and kept drinking until my nerves got under control. This period of alcoholism ended when I probably left the house, or maybe I just didn't have the energy to drink more. Derika knew very well that I killed Jamshed only to please Derika. Derika told me about Noreen's arrival and then Noreen came. Then my conversation with him continued. Noreen had told me that she had turned her back on her parents and her multi-crore property for my sake and came to me because of my love. I replied, Noreen, I think I am the luckiest person in the world to have you now. We will never be separated from each other. My life was incomplete without you, I said emotionally. I tried hard to convince Noreen to stay for a few days so that the wedding ceremony could be completed with pomp, but somehow Noreen was not willing to take my advice. She did not like commotion. Noreen feared news of the marriage would reach her parents and they would try to pester her to take it back. As this demand was reasonable, I did not insist further. I called the Nikah that evening and the marriage took place in the presence of 2 witnesses who were employed in my office. In the early days of my marriage, if someone came to meet me, my employees would express my absence. Often people were turned away from the door saying that I am not at home. At that time, I used to get lost in a strange world lying by Noreen's side. To tell the truth, my heart did not want to be away from Noreen even for a moment. That I didn't even know the time, how the days and nights were passing. I had no free time to do anything except spending time with Noreen. When I adopted Noreen, a new revolution took place in my life. Now I had stopped gambling and horse racing. I had an abundance of wealth and there was no question of it running out. Earlier Derica's power was working for me, and now with the blessings of Noreen's feet, I had all the comforts of the world. My business was growing at an amazing rate. I was satisfied with these changed circumstances. I had decided that I will never focus on bad deeds anymore. But sometimes the thought that Derica's existence was still hanging over my head bothered me. I have seriously considered telling Noreen many times now that she is my life partner and asking her for some advice. But at the time of Kamala's death, Derica had told me that I should not mention Derica even after 20 to 25 days of my marriage to Noreen. But what I was thinking in my heart, I doubted that Derica could know about it. It was almost a month since my wedding. Derica did not say anything to me, nor did I feel the need to address him. I always felt like she was very angry with me and was looking at me with angry eyes. I would quickly close my eyes and then try to collect my scattered thoughts. I used to think that Derica would always hold this grudge against me and that the dialogue between us should not be established again. Lest I have to kill an innocent person again for this. Derica told me that it requires the blood of one human every month to maintain its mysterious existence. But this time it was a little more than a month after drinking Kamala's blood, but she had not made any request to me yet. Because of which I now hoped that she might have left me behind and made someone else's head her abode. But sometimes I felt that I was complacent. I could have known the truth only by talking to Derica.